Right. Thank you to Dr. Smith for telling you that speech is a problem in Parkinson's disease. And so that's what I'm going to talk more about now. My lab does a lot with Parkinson's disease, and I have some fairly disjointed projects to just give you an idea of some recent work we're doing in the lab. So this is a project that was led by Kimberly Dahl, who is now a professor at Emerson. And this is one piece of our effort to try to figure out this discrepancy. About 90% of people with Parkinson's will have speech problems. It's a huge issue. Only about 13% of them get speech language pathology services. That's strange. So one piece of that we're looking at is how do they get referred to speech language therapy? And as part of that, we asked, how are they assessed by their neurologist? So in this study, Kim had expert neurologists use the primary tool that they have for evaluating speech, which is the MDS-UPDRS, which is a great tool and is valid in general for Parkinson's disease, but the speech item has not been validated. And the speech item asks a person without training in speech to evaluate the speech of a person with Parkinson's disease in terms of its understandability on a 4-point scale. And so we asked those neurologists, and this is the average of 20 neurologists, and we compared that to gold standard intelligibility ratings. And I don't have to tell you that that's not a line, right? So what I can also say, which I'm not taking time to show you, is that when you look at individual neurologists, which is the real life clinical scenario, it's way worse. So our next step here, which we would love for the government to open and fund, is to try to understand then how are these used clinically? Is there a referral cutoff point? You know, how can we actually get in there and get the information to the neurologists and help them integrate speech language services better? I already used half my time, so I'll go faster. We're also interested in how exactly does Parkinson's affect speech physiology? We actually know that Parkinson's affects all subsystems of speech: respiratory, laryngeal, articulatory. We tend to focus on voice a lot because of this perception that it's all about loudness, but that's probably a little overstated. In this study, we looked at a more niche aspect of speech, and that is velopharyngeal dysfunction. So this is a tiny little tongue you have hidden in the back of your nose that actually makes the difference between mom and Bob. It is not easily sensed, but it makes a big difference to how sounds sound. And we know that people with Parkinson's actually have escape through this area when they're not supposed to. What's really interesting about this study is we have airflow coming through the nose when it shouldn't, compared to vocal intensity. And what you can see is specifically in the Parkinson's group, the louder the person is, the more they are doing this aberrant behavior, which sort of stinks because the most popular therapy for people with Parkinson's disease is to simply ask them to get loud. So that gives us some new directions for interrogating that further. This is a project where we looked at sensory and sensory motor aspects of motor control in Parkinson's disease. And since I've used most of my time, I will just say that we absolutely know there's a sensory component, both somatosensory and auditory. And in this study, we found that it matters. The ability of a person to understand different speech sounds in terms of their different vowel correspondences was related to how intelligible their actual speech was when talking. And we have an ongoing study. We're in the middle of this R01 where we're looking over time, so longitudinally in the same speakers. Again, I mentioned that we know that all these subsystems matter, but we know that from very small individual studies. What we don't know is, do they all present at the same time, or is there a pattern to their presentation? We also don't know which ones matter. Like, it may be the case that they have stuff coming through their nose, but if it doesn't change their intelligibility, we don't care so much. So in this study, we're looking at patient-centered outcomes over time to see how they change and how they change with speech physiology. I did it.